All right. Hey, welcome back to the Go for CEO channel. This is John the Bomb. Building others means business. And look, I am super excited. This gentleman is a firecracker. All right. He was in the industry and decided to become a CEO, baby. And we were just talking offline about some of the struggles and tribulations that you have to learn. But stay tuned. Alex from EnRoads Paving is going to share some incredible information. I'm excited to have him on, and he's a paisan, so it's always a beautiful
Yeah,
thing to one. So, introduced by a great friend of ours, mutual, and excited to have you on the Go for CEO channel, Alex. Appreciate it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, John. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm finally glad that we got it in the queue here. The timing couldn't be more perfect, actually. We just started paving, what's today, Thursday, April 13th on Monday. So we got 7 jobs in the queue. A lot of people are waiting till May to pave, but our whip is so strong right now. We got so much work that we started early. So, pave early, pave often, and we're rocking. So very excited. Thanks
I
again.
love it. I love it. And one of the things we're doing kind of initially on these interviews is sharing, what En-ROADS Paving really kind of comes to the marketplace and what they're changing or what you're doing that's a little bit different, a little bit of a tweak. And I know that your young, energetic, different mindset is going to share that. So why don't we start with that, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the journey that you've been through over the last year and a half, and understanding how you guys create it with your partners. So take it away.
Absolutely. Yep. So founded En-ROads Paving just over a year ago in what would be March of 2022. The idea started way before that, right? I have a long lineage of construction in my blood. My nonno, my grandfather, nonno Italian, right? Came over to the States in the 50s and was actually a plumber, never spoke English, 6th grade education. So my father was also, an immigrant. Second language was English. So we come from a long line of entrepreneurs in construction. And I think that plays the role into thinking differently. And that's kind of what led me to found En-ROads Paving. So the difference between En-ROads and our competitors or everything else is we really take an owner's perspective, right? So I'm the CEO, founder, owner. My partner, his name's Joe O'Brien, COO, owner, same deal. The way we approach every project, every property, from the due diligence, the acquisition of the property, to the disposition, to just routine crack filling, maintenance, striping, is as if it's our own property, right? Our partners that we partner with today have a lot of properties, and all of our clients we view as part of the team. And you touched on the young and agile kind of thing. That's something we definitely, I don't want to say flaunt because that comes off wrong, right? But the fact of the matter is, if you look at the numbers, the generations are moving out, right? Whatever the boomers, right? And then there's Gen X. So there's a gap here that we're seeing in not just construction, but the world, right? For industries, for CEOs and leaders. So I think it was perfect timing for us. All of my team and my investors, partners, backers, whatever you want to call it, are under 40. So it's kind of a high intensity entrepreneurship, push each other, accountability environment. And that's what makes all the difference, right? You're not dealing with a salesman. I might have a little bit of that in me, but you're dealing directly with the owner. Everything from cold call to invoice and waiver, every project me and my partner personally oversee, whether it's here in Chicago, we're paving out in Oregon. I have a job coming up next week in Columbus, Ohio. So I think that's kind of the difference, right? Obviously, I was a salesperson before this in the paving game. And I looked at every project from a profitability standpoint, and that's what employees do, right? So becoming an owner, that's not how we look at it, right? We look at risk assessment, or we were just chatting about ADA, right? ADA compliance, COIs, insurance, all that sort of stuff comes into play. And that's kind of where people lean on us as landlords and owners, and where we kind of find our value, if you will. So it's a little bit of what we're doing different, in my opinion, compared to some of like the bigger outfits out there, for sure.
Yeah, no, and look at, you mentioned something so key, right? The word value is interpreted differently from everybody, right? But when you have a set understanding of how you're coming to the marketplace, that makes a big difference, go for CO community, right? So, let's dive into. So I appreciate that first beginning part, and now you see where Alex and his team is driving this. EnRoads Paving, and we'll have all the information in the description. You can visit his site, and let's get into kind of the minutia, right? Before we got on, we talked about some of the challenges, right, of going from a sales guy, right? They always say, does Michael Jordan, the greatest player of ever, is he a good coach? Is he a good owner, right?
Oof.
It's hard because
Tough
he's
questions.
so expected to do well, right? And you were obviously a high performer at what you did. So tell us a little bit about those beginning parts, because we always like to know a little bit of, all right, hey, where'd you get the funding? How did you start to talk to? Was it family raised? Was there an opportunity to look at, when you brought in Joe, like what was that dynamic? How did you guys, compartmentalize everything? So just kind of those beginning steps of how you started before March 2022 and what led to now over the next 6-12 months what you're going to do. So take it away.
Great question. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, as I mentioned, I don't need to dive into it anymore, but having construction in my blood, and having the family business family owned, owner managed, was a big role. So in terms of, you mentioned funding and raising capital, we kept it very tight just within our family community. My partner, Joe O'Brien, is really the only one who's not part of our family. So we have to keep things kind of even, right? We're equal partners. He's my COO. I always believe that execution is just as important as the person who's bringing in the order. Executing it is actually more important, in my opinion. And to that point, I started as an estimator, project manager, operations in the paving game. So I learned it from the ground up. I was also a union laborer way back in the day, almost 11 years ago or something like that. So again, speaks to that construction track record. I think I quickly had a niche for sales. People told me, at least early on. So having that operational background, not only in paving, but working for general contractors, doing demo, new construction, stuff like that, bringing that into the CEO role or the ownership role really is where the value starts coming around, right? Because there's a lot of people that are just salespeople who don't know anything about paving, and that's not where you help someone who owns a bunch of properties or a bank or anything like that, right? So where the whole idea started was probably right around that COVID time, maybe a little bit before. Saw an opportunity from one of my partners, a longtime friend of about 15 years, who owns about 80 properties here in Chicagoland. And my partner, Joe, was running projects, capital projects at our previous employer. And I saw an opportunity to bring him on once we launched. To help expand and grow and scale, because while I could have done it alone, we would have done half as much revenue and half as many projects. I think a big part of being a leader is knowing your weaknesses. I loved in interviews when people would ask me that question, what are your strengths and weaknesses, right? Because I'm like, well, they're the same thing, in my opinion. So knowing that, having somebody to help me with the follow through and the execution and being on site, from 4 a.m., 5 a.m. till the end of the day, and kind of just reading between the lines of these big ideas as kind of sales guys that we have, or big entrepreneurial ideas. Sometimes you got to have someone bring you to the ground, right? Ground you. And that's kind of where Joe comes in. And really helps us scale. Joe heads up our national division as well. We had no intentions really of paving nationally last year, in our first 90 days, I think it was, or 150, something like that. And I looked at him, I said, man, there's a lot of stuff going on in our market. There's a strike with Local 150 that affected the aggregate, concrete prices, obviously the war in Ukraine with the oil. And he said, you sell the job and I will make sure it gets done properly. So we did that, and we've executed about 24 jobs nationally, executed and contracted, and are well on our way to over 100 here in less than 13 months. So
wow,
it's moving pretty quickly. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about, some of the intriguing parts, right? Is you're in sales, we're doing it for a company. you have your partner now that is within that community, that base, right? So what was the dynamic when you first approached him, right? Because obviously you have strengths, he has strengths.
Mhm.
Was there a push and tug, right? So we're getting a little bit minutia, right? As much as you want to share.
Love it.
Um,
Yep.
Percentages, ownership, that type of thing. I think people can really learn from that because the partnerships aren't easy.
No, you're
You
not.
have to grow into that, and you have to mold with each other, and hopefully it is complementary. But take us through that journey as much as you want to share.
That's a great question, John, and was really important in the beginning stages for sure. So obviously, I had the idea, right, and I was pushed by one of our clients slash partners. I would call family for sure. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, well, maybe we could do this revenue dollar value or this many jobs, but after we get to X, we're going to need help. So why would we invest on the back end or scramble at 18 months to find somebody in the middle of the paving season when we can invest on the front end? So I approached Joe and I said, hey, I got this idea. I know you've worked for this client, and this is kind of what we're looking at, very early stages. And initially, being an employee and not an owner, you kind of look at compensation. As I mentioned, a salesperson, right? You're looking at every commission check, every penny, every dollar. And you think to yourself, well, what about this? Well, is this the right move? Well, what if I fail? Right? Those sort of questions. And very quickly, Joe is on board. Joe is a entrepreneur by blood as well. He's worked in the snow industry, and in construction as well. And I very quickly decided, because just like I'm bringing value to my partners or my clients, the value that he brings to me personally as an individual, as one of my best friends, as a complimentary business person who does challenge me every day for sure, and says things I don't always like to hear, but you need that, right? So having that foresight on the beginning to be like, hey, this guy complements my weaknesses, was very important. So very quickly I decided, in this world, in paving specifically, construction, it's always who's bringing in the orders, who's selling, because that's the person you need to take care of, right? Well, I've learned over the years that sometimes the highest producers are some of the most toxic people. And then that's not where Joe is. So I said, you know what? We're going to be equal partners. That's it. I don't care how many years or whatever I have to sacrifice personally, because that's not why we started this. We started this to have a family business, to make work more like family fun environment. Our core values are ERP, family, execution, relationships, passion, and then the F is family. So Joe's become family, and we don't hold it against him that his last name's O'Brien. We got a lot of vowels between our investors and partners and even our trade partners. But it's always good to have a good Irish guy running the crew.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people will learn from this video, right? And one of the things I picked up right there is that COO mindset, right, is also very integral into the planning, right? And you can't have the type of growth you've had without an operator side of it, right? As much as you could have sold 100 of these, right, and you had a network and you brought on a client right away that seemed to influence this opportunity, the operation side is huge. They say the sales will get you in the limelight, right, but operations will kill you. So so it's an interesting dynamic, being a fellow sales guy, right, and CEO entrepreneur myself. So it's interesting how you scale up. So let's take this conversation to now. You've established how you kind of cemented the value of where you came from, how you started it, what partnership was really key to having EnRoads be a difference maker in the marketplace. How did you start marketing, right? So can you give us a little insight? It sounds like you brought over maybe some clients that you had from previous relationships, but to grow 100 plus now in jobs over the last year, 13 months or so, and going to explode into the next 6 to 12 months. What are some things that you've done? I saw your website's phenomenal. Give us a little bit of insight what you're doing with marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. Marketing's always the fun question, right? Because you could say that it's always the first budget to get slashed when times get tough, but it's so important. It's very hard to measure too. So personally, LinkedIn is huge for me. I remember I made my LinkedIn page when I think I was a freshman at Indiana University, or maybe a sophomore. Graduated from DePaul. That's when I really started honing in the LinkedIn. Instagram, social media is really big. And again, like I mentioned, that gap in the age and stuff like that, the millennials getting the Gen Zs to kind of come on board or buy into the vision is kind of where that marketing comes in, social media. And the thing about that is it's free, right? So I always never understood, like, why aren't some of these guys utilizing these platforms like LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, whatever. And because it's free, right? And marketing's usually a big dollar value. So we just started SEO stuff as well, kind of getting into that world a little bit. That was what, 6 months ago. We started, kind of investing in the SEO side of things, but it's big word of mouth for sure, along with the social media in terms of marketing. And like you said, the website. So we revamped that at the beginning of every season. Obviously, it's a seasonal business, so we don't execute work other than nationally. Basically from January 1st to April 1st, call it. So that's when we invest heavily in, revamping the website, revamping our social media. We redid like our colors, our core values. I remember first time I saw core values, I don't know if it was one of my partner's companies or my brother or something like that. I'm like, this seems kind of cheesy. This isn't real. This doesn't make sense. Well, I learned very quickly in my 20s from different dating that core values probably the most important thing out there, right? So that's where we revamped our core values here in January, and it's just kind of a transparent thing. It's less of a sale or a marketing kind of ploy as it is, hey, this is how we run our everyday lives, and this is how we run our business, and they're one and the same. I'm the same person on this podcast as I am with my partner Joe, as I am with my admin or client or my mom and dad, right?
Yeah.
So that transparency thing, I think, is a big leap in terms of business that some of the old guard really didn't have. And I think that's very telling for an organization, for a human, but definitely for where we're trying to go. Right. So that's definitely where I hone in the marketing standpoint, is just trying to be myself, kind of get in front of the camera, see who I am, stuff that I do every day, and just show, hey, we all put our pants on the same way, right? It doesn't matter if you're Warren Buffett or, the guy looting next to the pay box, right? Like, we all wake up the same day, hopefully at the same time, maybe it'll be a little bit later, but we all put our pants on the same way. And I think that was the biggest challenge to starting a business, because I had this vision of these guys being like super wealthy and having everything figured out, which I quickly realized that's just not accurate. No one has everything figured out,
Right.
to the point of that weaknesses, right? So firming up some of those weaknesses to be as prepared as possible for the challenges that arise in running a business, I think is the most important part for sure. And I think we've done pretty good at that so far.
Awesome. Well, you gave some great nuggets there, and Go for CEO community. This is what it's all about, right? You see Alex having founded a company from a vision, bringing on a partner, someone that he has established, keeping them in the family, right, and connecting the dots with the investors and everything that you've done. So, tell us, the journey now of, you do the marketing, you do the LinkedIn process. Is it you that literally heads the sales division, or do you have a couple guys or gals that are on your team? What is that dynamic like for the journey of the client when they first see you to engaging to a bid and those types of things?
Yeah, great question. So as it stands right now, right, we're still pretty early on, budding kind of regional national paving company, but quickly becoming, a pretty household name, or some go-to, I guess you could say, here in Chicago. Right now, it's just me and my partner and my COO, right, Joe. We have a family office or private equity group that helps us out with all back-end bookkeeping and kind of allows me and Joe to keep our eye on the prize, for me to sell and work, oversee everything, and then Joe to execute if we have jobs nationally, to travel. Just this, a little bit of insight, we had our Q1 quarterly for 2023 last week. And me and Joe were just getting into a conversation about bringing on our first direct hire. So we have, I guess, employees ask from our private equity group that help us out with everything, but they don't necessarily work directly for us, right? on our payroll. We pay for it, but it's a little bit different of a look, right? So me and Joe were talking about our first hire. Well, do we need help in sales? Do we need help in operations? What about accounting? Marketing, like we just talked about. And I thought, hey, it's kind of early. I want to get back to getting a little bit above into the black. Obviously, we became profitable pretty quick, but we're going to get some money back to the investors and then some. And that's always my first goal as the CEO, right? But investing in human capital, I think, is probably the most important thing in any organization. And starting it early needs to happen. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're looking on potentially bringing on like somebody who has like a sales hybrid operations. We try to cross train. I was always cross trained to run a job, estimate a job, sell the job, cold call, whatever, manage the job. And that's kind of what we're looking for in somebody. So that process literally started a week ago. We'll see if it's this year, or probably be closer to next year. But if you would have asked me 13 months ago when we launched that I would be looking to bring someone on now, I would have been like, you're crazy,
Yeah.
but it happens fast, as you know, very fast.
So you've targeted basically that cross-pollination of a sales and operations person, right? So right now, then, how does the client get serviced? Do you basically act as a general contractor in a sense, or walk us through that because I'm missing that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. So here in Chicago, we have proven very good infrastructure here with the union paving. So in Chicago, it's a heavy union town, as you know. EnRoads Paving is not signatory with the union, but we have union labor that is. And what makes that important is pretty much have to make a decision out of the gates if we're going to go full that way, or we can service clients nationally, similar to like a bank or whatever across the country to do routine maintenance. So we're double-breasted in that sense that we can take care of all the big capital jobs here in Chicago, the 600, 700, $1 million jobs plus, but also we can perform routine maintenance across the country. Seal coating, striping, and stuff like that. So that's kind of what it looks like. Obviously, me on the front end, as soon as we get the job in, I'm always stay in touch. I'm always on every email. I'm always checking up. But usually there's a handoff there to Joe, and he's the one who kind of makes everything happen. But I'm involved from soup to nuts for sure.
I love it. I love it. Okay, well that makes sense. I mean, you've got the process he's going, and I'm sure it's tweaking, on a week by week basis and just perfecting little things. What has been maybe two examples, right, that kind of made you feel like, all right, we've got this thing going, right? So
on Wednesdays, not that you can do a dollar beer anymore, I don't think that's even a thing. But walking the portfolio in the parking lots and truly touring them was surreal. That was about 40 days ago. And then I would say the other thing was national, our first national job. It couldn't have been further. It was in, I forget the town, it's Oregon, obviously. Was the town? Completely blanking. Where the Ducks are, Oregon Ducks, right outside there. Bend, Oregon, excuse me.
Yeah.
Oregon. Couldn't have been further. Big job, about $250,000, 4 days long. People work a little bit differently out there.
Wait, is the client Nike or?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So that was very cool. And I was really excited on LinkedIn and market it. So our first national job, that little thing with DePaul was very cool. My partner Joe, I actually graduated from DePaul as well. So it was very cool for both of us. I'll let you know once we finish the jobs and get them inked and everything. And then I think, I've been talking a lot about how it's not about money and, it's family business, owner managed, family owned, but becoming profitable. Being able to look at our P&L when we started second quarter of last year and in 3 quarters to get in the black, even if it was a small, I don't care if it's a penny over the black, that's a huge deal and it shouldn't be taken lightly. And I think I take it too lightly and I'm very tough on myself. I think a lot of CEOs are. But that's just a huge leap, right? And that happened pretty quickly. So those, I think, were my 3 biggest, achievements, if you will, that happened pretty quick.
I love it. Yeah, no, those are different areas, right? And the types of things that really inspire you to keep on going, right? Um, Let me ask you something. The funding side, right? I know you structured it where you've got some a family office partnership, right?
Mhm.
And you've got some things going on with obviously with Joe and that partnership. So when you think about the reference to scaling, which is bringing on talent and starting to do that, how does that dynamic play into you when you think about that part of it is, responding back to the, investor group that you have, along with, playing the, hey, like if we bring in the right talent, it could be a 5, 10x multiple
Yep.
type of ROI on it, right? So give us a little bit of that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, as I mentioned, we have the private equity family office sort of thing. And then as we kind of bring in more business and start to gain more control and just dollars and cents, I guess, if you will, we have to look for partners similar to you, right? Diversify always, just like looking for a new employee. And this is just like I tell my partners on the ground executing work, if it's subcontractor or whatever. If they're not eating, I'm not eating. If they're not making money, we're not making money, right? So it's no different than a partnership with a banker or anybody else that you would want to bring funding into, or a loan or whatever, because it's a partnership, and that's how we approach every single client, every single subcontractor, every partner. We are in this together. Like I said, I'll put our pants on the same way, right? And I think as long as you keep that in the forefront, things will work out. But we are at that phase where we're paying things back. We're getting back to even, but we're also looking for, hey, what's on the horizon? If we want to bring someone on, is the money where it needs to be, right? Are we netting what we need to do? Are we paying taxes the certain way, or are we taxes another way, or how do we handle that kind of cash flow, right? Um, I think that's where people, like you being a banker and stuff like that, really bring value by diversifying. I mean, obviously, you're seeing what's kind of in the news and everything with banks and everything right now, and the challenge, I guess you could say. And I think you're going to see a lot of money changing hands, right? If it isn't already, and that's kind of what we're looking to do. Start kind of our own relationships. We had a little bit of help to get here. Everyone does, even though they will never admit it, right? I will, right? And a lot of help. But where do we go from here? With our own relationships, and that's the independence, call it the millennial, whatever, swagger, if you will. That's kind of what makes us different, and that's where we're trying to head, right? So, yeah, don't say no to anything, right? That's something that I
It's a
live.
big deal. That's a
Yeah,
big deal. Being open and honest with yourself, right? And where you want to go. And then having those conversations with the beginning group, right? And always being honest and kind of just being moving forward, right? So you mentioned something, earlier, and I want to get back to it because I think it's so fundamental to the way that you've had this incredible success early on, and you are setting yourself up for incredible success long term. So, two questions for you. Who are the people that you mentioned a banker, so I'm excited about that, right? But who are the people that you're looking to sit at the table with you over the next 6 to 12 months as you mature into a 24 to 36 month type of old business, right? And then secondly, can you go deeper into the ERPF? Because I live on a fundamental of 5 Fs, right? Faith, family, finance, fitness, and then I like to have fun, right? So I love the ERPF, and I think our audience would really enjoy hearing that. So the first one is, who are the people that you feel are going to be a part of the table that you confide on moving forward? And then ERPF, and then we'll kind of get into the final parts of the interview.
yeah, absolutely. So I would like to stay kind of where we're at with the family owned, kind of keep it in the family, right? I kind of keep my partner Joe, potentially probably, like you said, what, 36 months, have to bring on somebody new. I think that the right person, giving them equity would be a big differentiation, from some of these other outfits that are out there. A lot of the younger generations are wanting to be more involved and not necessarily motivated by money, which is kind of crazy to me, but at the same time, it's really not, because I feel that same way. So I would like to stay with family and friends at that table, eat together. I don't, they always say rather eat steaks with or what is it, steaks with snakes and crumbs with bums or whatever. So we try to stay away from that. But yeah, definitely want to keep it in the family years down the road, potentially bringing on somebody else to be there. So tell me the second question again.
Yeah, there's just your ERP
Oh
and
yeah, the
a
core
little bit
value.
further with that and F, because I think it's so fundamental to the way that you've had that success. I think if we really get into it, maybe the next interview we'll have just a 15-minute talk about that, but just high level on what you have established with ERP and F.
Yeah, definitely. So it's something I should have touched on earlier on the ERP family. The core values is we run on EOS, so Entrepreneur Operating Systems. Not sure if you heard of that. It's kind of like a framework for business owners that are starting off. So core values are huge for us. Last year, if you walk into different businesses, you'll kind of see core values on the wall or different marketing campaigns. We had kind of like a couple different sentences or whatever, and it all kind of was in the same ERP family realm, if you will. But core values should really be one word, right? In my opinion. So Joe and I kind of scaled that back in January and just did an ERP family the way it comes out. So it's execution, relationships, passion, and then family. I bring certain core values like passion, or the family, maybe some relationships. Maybe on the execution side is where my partner Joe kind of comes in, and I'll probably invite him on the next call for sure. And then same with the investors and partners that back us and help us out. They all fall within that. Change is part of the journey. Change is the only constant. Making the next person, like you're talking about, like a new hire, successful. Like that's what gets us out of bed. That's what keeps things moving. When you lose sight of core values, personally or professionally, is when bad stuff happens. Like I said, I've learned that the hard way. I think a lot of us have, right, over the years. If we can keep those things in line in every conversation, every contract, every client interaction, every paving job, I think that's where the success really arises. But I do see the 5 F's. I have seen that before. I really like that. Nice and simple, and it's honest and it's direct, right? It's very important stuff for sure.
Awesome. Well, Alex, man, this has been a cool journey on the Go for CO channel. We aim to have you on every 6 to 12 months, hopefully build a tribe that are looking forward to that next conversation with you and building that momentum. Go for CO, we're coming out with a book shortly, talking to the publisher later on today. We've inked our opportunity. This is from my background, not world famous, but that's the beauty of Go for CO is, we wanted to challenge this channel to be Alex, right? He grew up in Elmwood Park and, family oriented and, may not be known worldwide like a Mark Cuban or something like that, but man, so important to the community and what you're doing and building EnRoads. And then you're going to be able to give an opportunity to people to be a part of EnRoads and paving and everything that you're doing. So to end the interviews, we typically go through CEO, which is really business oriented, right? So C is for client experience. And we touched a little bit on that with some of the journey that you take them through, but maybe high level, 60 seconds on that. Then engagement, which is kind of, we used to call it employee engagement, but it's really engagement with your vendors, with the union people, with people in the family office, right? Like, how do people engage with you? And the last one is operational excellence. And I'll repeat all of them, but give us 60 seconds on client experience from EnRoads Paving perspective.
Yeah, client experience is super important, right? So from first, as I mentioned, from first cold call or referral to the last waiver and invoice, that's all handled by me. It might not always be that way, but for now it is. We oversee every job, every piece of paper that comes out of our office ourselves. And that puts a personal touch that really makes clients feel good about themselves and know they're in safe hands. People do business with people for 2 reasons. They like you or they trust you, and trust you, I should say. I feel like somebody can always get somebody to like somebody. The devil was charismatic, right? My dad always says. But getting someone to trust you is difficult. A lot of people are hard sells out there, and that is the most important part in business. And once that transfer of trust happens, that's when magic happens. And it's no different for a client as it is for a personal relationship, right? Or dating somebody or family or mother, or that trust needs to be there. And you break that trust, and it takes years to build in one night or one word to or sentence to screw up. So that's making them feel like they're part of the journey, part of the family, is the most important part. And I think we do very good at that. And I better not lose sight of that in 10 years from now. And I hope you play this back to me. Like, hey, so let's talk about that C again. That's very,
Awesome.
very important.
Awesome. I'm so happy for you too. It can be something that, like you said, as you grow, you got to just make sure you rein yourself back in and always pay attention to that piece, because ultimately your business is based on your clients, right? So that client experience is big. So E is for engagement. So you've shared, I mean, some really cool things, but if you were to take a high level, why do you think people engage with you and your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So very similar to what I was saying about the likability, the trust factor, for sure. But I think being involved in stuff outside of just paving or properties or business, right? So there's different nonprofits that we're involved in. Breast cancer is something that's very near and dear to my heart. And both my sister-in-laws were diagnosed years ago. They both beat it, knock on wood. So every year we do the Making Strides Against Breast Cancer walk down at Soldier Field, kind of getting more involved in the community. I know you're really good at that. I see that all the time in different organizations, sitting on different boards. I'm in Vistage, which is a peer group that I love. I'm able to talk like this open freely with people who share the same struggles as me. And then also, like I said, the age factor. It used to be, the millennial used to be a swear years ago. And now it's like, oh, wait, they are running our country or en route to, I should say.
Hold on a second, man. Gen X is still here.
Gen X, yes, Gen X is still there, right? Yes.
We're the gap. We get you guys from boomers to millennials, like we got forgotten, but it's cool.
No, that is actually, I've heard that a lot. My oldest brother, Danny's 41, 42. Yes, he's kind of like, I feel like the forgotten stuff gets forgot with the Gen X. I don't know why. I've heard that a few times, but the limelight's always on us as millennials. But in all seriousness, that's kind of where things are moving. There's a lot of CEOs or leaders or presidents or whatever that are kind of in that 50 plus, and that 30 or 40 and younger is kind of a different age gap that's changing things. So I think as we get into Gen Z, and I don't know what the next generation is called. I forget. Someone just mentioned it.
Why, maybe?
Yeah, Gen Y or something like that. Keeping them engaged and involved and constantly learning from them and becoming better is how you stay good as an owner, CEO, and
It could just be called Gen AI one day.
well, that's where things are moving. Yeah.
So
Jeez.
it's incredible, right? So
It really is. It really is.
neat. Well, last one is operational excellence, right? And obviously, I know Joe couldn't be a part of it today, but give us a high level of why. Maybe I don't know if you want to do it this way, but why you think Joe just has that kind of locked in the operations, right? Because again, it's so important. Or from your perspective, from a CEO level, what part of operations is kind of your high level 60-second on?
Yeah, absolutely. So back when the whole relationship started with Joe and I, we were working for our previous employer, and something happened on a job that was very tiny, wasn't a big deal, but I saw leadership throw him under the bus and started doing this, pointing fingers. And I knew at that day that I was going to do this because that's just not how you run life. That's not how you run people who you care about, employees, family. So how Joe reacted to that was by working through it, executing it, making the client happy. And we were young bucks at the time. I would say that. And I knew that day that he was going to be my business partner. I just didn't know what business or how it would look like, but yeah, I try to stay out of it because I get to talking a lot, as you could tell. And when it comes to operations, you got to be very direct. I can do it, but not my strength. But in Chicago, we got a wonderful infrastructure here with our union paving arm, and then a big network of people across the country who we work with. That's become part of our little ERP family, if you will. So operations is important. Yep, always remember that.
Awesome. Well, that's the CEO, right? Client experience engagement and operational excellence. So awesome, brother. Well, hey, look, top level stuff. Give them your website. What's the best way to engage someone if you're a part of the Go for CEO community, or you're coming on this interview, I hope that you replay this, really take some good notes from Alex, and engage with him. Right? Leave a comment for the channel. By the way, I forget, but subscribe to the channel. Darn it! So
I think I have. I gotta subscribe still. Yeah.
we got to get to 1,000 subscribers minimum, and then go to million from there. So, but exciting stuff. So tell them how to communicate with you. What's the best way? I heard your LinkedIn, active. What's some of the ways?
Yeah,
that
absolutely. EnRoadsPaving.com, kind of like en route, right? Chicago. I think that's a Chicago term, maybe a everywhere term. En, not in. So EnRoads, EnRoadsPaving.com. Alex Ionessa, founder, CEO of EnRoads Paving, two N's, two S's, AIANNESSA at EnRoadsPaving.com. 708-800-8434. Shoot me a text, a call, whenever, 24/7. My phone's always on. Give us a shout. Love to work with you. Love to help you out with acquisitions, dispositions of your properties. We're here for you, whatever you need. For sure.
Awesome, brother. Well, cool. Well, hey, again, this is John the Bomb. Building others means business. I love my acronyms, right? I'm going to influence Alex with an acronym one of these days. But I love the ERP, right? He has his own acronym, ERPF. So that's a phenomenal one as well. So, so many things to tie in, so many great things. Really appreciative that you came on the channel and you've shared, what your generation is doing, especially as you as one of the leaders. So excited for you, Alex, and we'll have you on in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yes, sir. Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
All right.